everyone for being here today. It's always a great day to be a Mountaineer. Today we have the opportunity to introduce to you our 10th head soccer coach in the history of West Virginia University soccer. I do want to thank the search committee that helped along the ways of finding Dan Stratford as our next coach. It's Terry Howells, Simon Dover, Steve Urias, Kelly Zinn, and Greg Featherston for their great help in this search process. We started this about a month ago when the opening became available, and we indicated that we were going to do a national search, and we had the opportunity to do that. And throughout that search, one name just kept coming to the top, and that was Dan Stratford. You look at it, and he's 155 miles away. We looked at people from 2,000 and 3,000 miles away, and the guy closest to home had the ability to just do that, come back home to West Virginia University. In this whole process, we hadn't changed our values and what we look for in a head coach. First and foremost is character, head coaching experience, the student athletic experience, somebody that's going to emphasize academics, somebody's going to emphasize athletic development, and somebody that's going to have our student athletes involved in community outreach, not only here in Morgantown, but throughout the state. And also an individual that's a winner, that has a proven record. So with all those qualities that we were looking for, again, Dan was the person that kept coming to the top. Dan was a player here at West Virginia during 2004-2007, leading WVU to 3 NCAA tournaments. He was a team captain in 2007. He went on to play professional soccer for several years, had the opportunity to come back to WVU as an assistant coach and served in that role from 2011 to 2013. Then he went on to University of Charleston, where he had very many accomplished records and statistics that he could add to his resume. As an assistant coach, he was there for 3 years, then became the head coach, and he won 2 Division II national championships in 2017 and 2019. He outscored opponents 87-8 this past season, and has great expectations for the future of our men's soccer program. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to our next head coach of men's soccer, Dan Stratford.
Hi everyone. Firstly, just like to thank Shane and also extend my gratitude to the search committee for allowing that name to keep coming to the top, I suppose. But again, incredibly excited to be here. It does feel like a bit of a homecoming for me. Crazy to think that 2004 as a freshman stepped foot not just in the United States for the first time, but here in Morgantown, West Virginia, and now we've gone full circle. And I'm back as the head coach. I joked the other day that my former head coach would have had a hard time believing that I would ever be in this position as a freshman. I'm sure I caused him plenty of problems. But again, I have a lot of gratitude for everyone in the athletic department that maybe helped promote me and endorse me. And again, just incredibly grateful to be here. Being in Charleston for 6 years was fantastic for my growth. But it also allowed me to just see just how far WVU extends throughout the state. Again, I drove to work every day and drove past a billboard for West Virginia University, so it's never really felt that far away. So can't wait to get started and bring on full 2020.
Any questions for Coach?
Dan, certainly not every good player becomes a good coach. What led you to want to get into the coaching realm?
I think it was always something that I was interested in at a really young age. My career as a younger player had some ups and downs, and I thought to myself, probably at the age of 15 or 16, I'm probably going to be better at coaching than I am at playing. The biggest influence, quite honestly, was my father. He coached me the whole way through my youth career. He's the best coach I've ever played for, and I'm taking bias out of that, given that he's my dad. But I think seeing how many lives he's touched of young players, how many people still to this day follow up with me, but first check how he's doing. I think that had a huge influence on my interest in coaching. So again, it's something that I've always had passion for the tactical side of things, always been intrigued by how you develop a player, how you improve a player, how you impact a player. Even during my playing career, I was learning a lot about what a coach could do and what a coach should do as a player as well. So it was never far away.
Obviously, Danny had a lot of success at Charleston, very close with Chris Grassy. Now you're here, he's at Marshall. What is it about that UC program that's been able to maybe produce such good coaches?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris was a visionary for what the model needed to look like at UC. I think, again, on a personal standpoint, it was good for me to, if you like, leave the nest, leave WVU and grow and listen and hear someone else's ideas. I'd played for Marlon. I'd coach with Marlon, and obviously have a lot of gratitude for what he's done for me over the years as well. But it was certainly beneficial to hear a different perspective on things. We had a slightly different model there. We had a lot more student athletes, but it worked for the Division II model. And his ability to recruit, not just domestically, on a global level as well, certainly helped influence me from that standpoint. And again, I just think being able to, every experience is a positive experience as long as you're willing to look back with humility and understand what you can take from it. And I think I took a lot of positives from working with Marlon, and then again working with Chris as well.
Had you talked to Chris at all throughout this process? Do you have any advice?
That we should schedule them. That was the biggest piece of advice. So, and we will look to do that. Just to answer, he sent out a nice tweet. I joked with him the other day. I said, you know, we could have a Twitter war going here between the two of us, but privately have a lot of fun with it. But we're not going to do that. Listen, I'm always going to have a lot of respect. He's always going to be a really good friend, but I'm always going to want to beat Marshall. So.
Dan, can the things that worked well in Charleston that led to 2 national championships can they be replicated at this level? What were those things, and how are they replicated?
I think the biggest piece of my philosophy is that it's player-centered. It's about the student. It's about their holistic development. The soccer aspect of what we get to do is such a small piece of how we can impact them, and that would translate anywhere I would work. So it's not about who we've recruited or how we've gone about that part. For me, it's once you have those players, what are you doing with them? Do they trust you, and do you trust them? And I think it shouldn't feel like it's the staff and the players. We are collectively one team. So you know, that's the first order of business, is to get that message across to the players and to earn their trust.
How do you think your history with the program helps you as opposed to having been an outsider?
Well, it shaped me, so it's first-hand experience. You know, when I refer to my student-athlete experience, it wasn't somewhere else, it was here. So I've been a player here when we had some success as a program. I've worked here as a coach when we've had some success as well. So I think from that standpoint, the connection I have, the affinity I have for this place, you know, my core values, my philosophy, the environment I want to create, it all stems from my time here as a player. It's so deeply rooted in what I did here as a student athlete. I look back quite simply as my experience as the best 4 years of my life. And if I can do anything for my student athletes, it's create the same, you know, the same vision for them as well.
You said you had always wanted to be a coach. So when you were playing, were there things you filed away when you came across that said, hey, I'm going to do that when I'm a coach, or I'm not going to do that? How did your playing days influence you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, if you're thinking that way, you're often learning what not to do as well as what to do as well. So certainly when I stepped into the professional game, I think you begin to understand how much of a business that side of things is, which again kind of has shaped me to think I would never probably look to be a professional coach. I prefer the development component of working with a college student, working with someone potentially from the age of 18 to 23, and knowing how much it shaped me, how much influence it had on me, feeling like at some point I'll take some credit for the growth of the student athlete. I think that's really where you know, I get the most satisfaction.
How much have you had a chance to study the personnel you're inheriting, 2 NCAA tournament teams? What do you see there?
There's a lot of quality. The program collectively this isn't broken and needing fixing. There may be a few things. I think for me, the first month or so needs to be gathering as much information as I can, learning about the players, learning what the needs are of the program. Before I come in and try and do what I did at UC here, I need to know what works here. I need to know what is there in place that will make me better. I'm still a relatively young coach, I like to think. I still want to develop myself and grow myself. So, you know, it's not going to surprise me if we come across, or I come across some aspects of the program that are better than what I did at UC. So it's about identifying what those are, maybe where the shortcomings are as well, and understanding how that's going to kind of align with my philosophy and what I want the culture and the environment to look like.
Have you ideas on where you're going to recruit?
Everywhere. It's a global market. So I would say that in comparison to what was available at UC, I think being here now opens the domestic market back up. Again, it's something I'm not unfamiliar with being here before. You know, I went through a couple of recruiting cycles here as an assistant coach. Joe Piatzik, Jad Arslan, players that were part of the program, that was part of that recruiting process. But it would be narrow-minded to not look at this as a global market. It's the most popular sport in the world. At UC, we had 27 different countries represent the program last season. So it's about, whether they're domestic or international, it's about taking that diverse group and making it as inclusive as possible.
In the same sense, we've seen a couple of players come over from the UK and play for both you at UC Charleston and West Virginia. Do you expect to see that pipeline continue? Do you have any links back home that could see that pipeline continue to come through? I do,
but to me that doesn't matter. I think with the time at UC, we've developed networks in 27 different countries. So again, I have at my disposal, I'd like to think, a global market to research. Quite honestly, there are thousands and thousands of student athletes that want to come to America, want to play college soccer, and quite honestly want to come to WVU as well. It's not about whether they're the best player, it's about whether they're the best fit. There's far more to it than identifying good players. That's pretty easy. It's who's going to align with what we're trying to do here with the culture, wants to improve, wants to develop, has ambition. Those are the pieces that are more important. So I think the key at UC has been having access to good players is one thing, but being thorough in the recruiting process to make sure you're getting the players that are the right fit. That's the piece I think that separated us at UC.
Have you had a chance to meet with the current team yet, and what do you think?
That's coming this afternoon, so I haven't had that opportunity yet. I guess there's been some subliminal messages in what I've done in the press up to now to make sure they know that, again, I'm going to put them first. It's going to be about me proving to them that they should trust me and that they should feel comfortable in the environment. I want to make it a bit of an open door policy, really. Have some ideas for how we can do that, maybe some things that we can implement to bridge that gap, but it's pretty simple for me. You recruit good players that you think have the right mentality, and then you make sure you keep them as happy as possible, and you care about their well-being. Forget what we do tactically, that'll get us a long way in terms of the performances and the results of the team. Those other pieces will supplement it, no doubt, but I've obviously got to get that message across to them over the course of the spring. I think the timing of things is really nice, that I have an extended period of time before, if you like, the pressure or the fun part of playing in the fall. So that's going to be a process, but I'm looking forward to that, certainly.
Have you started with assistant coaches putting a staff together, anything like that?
They're already here. Yeah. They're already here. Listen, I played with Andy for 4 years. I played with Nick for 3. Again, that bond, that collective team spirit that we had, that's why the philosophy is what it is. I want the players to take ownership of this program, want it to feel like this is theirs. We're here to supplement that, but this belongs to them. That's what it felt when I played here. I feel like that's what it felt like for Andy and Nick as well. It goes beyond my connection to them and the relationship I have with them from a friendship perspective as an alumni tie. I have a lot of respect for how they've gone about their business. I respect how they played the game when we were here together. I respect what they did in their professional careers. And it's not like I've been very far away. You know, for the last 6 years, I've been keeping up with Andy and Nick. You know, I've seen their transition into the coaching capacity. I truly believe they bring an immense amount of value to the program. And as I am, if you like, accruing that information, understanding the lay of the land a little better than I already do, they're going to be really important. I'm going to lean on those two. So I think it's a pretty cool story that you've got 3 alum of the program that were all pretty successful. 2 All-Americans, I didn't have that honour, but again, to bring a recruit in to show, here's 3 players that played here that now wanted to come back and start their coaching career, I think that speaks volumes to not just the athletic department, but to what West Virginia University is.
Your thoughts of the MAC as a conference?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously have some familiarity with it from my time before. We were in that transition from the Big East to the MAC when I first took over. Funny enough, you know, we've played Akron, I think 3 times since I've been at UC. So familiar with what you would consider the toughest competition, traditionally speaking, in conference. And then have a good friend in Sean Teepin, who's the associate head coach at Bowling Green as well. So again, when I wasn't here, I was still a fan. You know, I probably watched 6 or 7 games a season, if not more, to see how the guys were doing. So again, I've not been far away, and I've always wanted the best for the program. As a passionate alum, it's slightly different now that you head into the coaching role. But as I said, I feel like I've been keeping up with things here as well.
You say you kind of have a player-centric philosophy. In your words, what does that look like in practice, I guess?
To make sure that they feel comfortable, to make sure they feel confident, that they're brave in the decisions that they make. I think the mission statement for the team is to be the most intelligent team in the country, not just tactically, but in terms of their emotional intelligence as well. So how can you deliver a product that makes good decisions, that understands their role, it's clearly defined, but then can also do that under pressure, can do that 1-0 down, can do that 1-0 up, can do it in an away game, in a big RPI game, or in a national tournament, hopefully. So you have to create an environment in training that replicates that. I'm a huge believer that you train as you play. So setting the standard incredibly high in training, having a competitive element every day in training. Those are going to be some of the things I hope I'm going to see straight away. But certainly if we can do that on a consistent basis, I think it will breed well for the results as well.
Soccer is a sport in the state of West Virginia, which is obviously competing with baseball, basketball, football. Do you see you can have any influence on the growth of the sport in the state, not just within the university?
I hope so. I think for 15 years I've seen it grow. You know, I played with fellow teammates that didn't pick up soccer until they were 13, 14 because they weren't tall enough to play basketball or big enough to play football, but incredible athletes. And that just simply doesn't happen anymore. You know, the youth of today are exposed to it at such a young age. At the grassroots level now, it's rare now that you have a parent that's the coach. They have someone qualified, they have someone paid, they have someone that has experience in that profession. So it's been amazing to me to see the evolution of soccer, just here in West Virginia, but certainly throughout the country as well. So if we can have an influence on that, if we can have an impact on that as well, in the position we are within the staff and certainly as a team, then absolutely I want to do that.
Any other questions for Coach?
Did you ever think as a kid growing up in England you'd call a place like West Virginia home?
No. Quite honestly, I remember being in England and fun enough was at a trial with Andy. We actually hated each other at the time, but the coach came up to me after the game and said, "Would you be interested in coming to America?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, can I get your email address just in case?" That was February of 2004, and I was here August 9th, 2004. So it's funny how things can change. I think we were maybe more of a rare commodity there, that the international player would come over to America. And now sometimes we don't have to be the one that reaches them. There's so much word of mouth, there's so much out there now. What a fantastic opportunity this is. I'm such a huge believer in collegiate athletics and the student athlete experience, certainly here at West Virginia, but across the board. That again, now you have these international players that are looking for this opportunity, that they are maybe focused on that as a goal at 15, 16 years old. I didn't know what this was at 19 years old, and again 4 or 5 months later I was here. So you know, that's been an evolution, and the media attention that now surrounds collegiate athletics. When I was playing in Scotland, I had an ESPN subscription so I could watch the basketball team in 2010. But again, that would never have existed back when I was a lot younger with a lot more hair.
How much research did you do on West Virginia before you came?
Not enough.
Bring enough clothes?
Yeah, just about. No, again, I think I can reflect on my recruiting experience and going through that process to understand, you know, what I want how I want the recruits to perceive WVU, and certainly when I was at UC as well. I think if you're going to talk about honesty and humility in your core values, then that needs to be there from day one. We need to understand what we are and what we are not as a university and as an athletic department, and you have to be willing to share that with a student athlete. There's still a lot of things that we can offer them, and I think you need to be as transparent as you can in the recruiting process. You need to feel like when they step foot on campus for day one, whether it be from just across the state border, somewhere else in the country, or from overseas, that it's as close to what they expected as possible. It serves us no purpose to embellish in the recruiting process, to sell them on a fantasy or the American dream, whatever you want to call it, for them to turn up in September and be disgruntled, for them to think this isn't what I expected. I don't get the best out of that player, they don't get the best out of the experience, and no one wins. So I do think you've got to be willing to be transparent, to show them this is what it will feel like if you come to our university. And as a result, I think that acclimation period, that adaptation to university life and to being a student athlete, hopefully is expedited a little bit as well.
You played under the legendary Terry Butcher. What was he like as a person, and what inspirations did he have on your career?
Yeah, it was obviously a little bit starstruck to play for a former England captain. I have to be careful what I say, maybe because I alluded to it earlier. I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do playing for certain coaches. So an incredible presence. Again, he still carried that presence of here's someone that's played in the World Cup, here's someone that's captained their country. But again, some things I'll take with me and some things that maybe I'll avoid doing here. Again, I think you just scrutinise on a different level at a professional club. You know, we were in the. I can remember distinctly being in the locker room, and we thought he was a game away from getting a sack, and then we went 23 games unbeaten to win the league. So things can turn around very, very quickly, but it's just a little more ruthless. It's more of a business, and sometimes, unfortunately, that reveals itself as a player, and as a young player, that's quite tough. That's a lot of pressure. I think that the great advantage of here is when you recruit a player, typically speaking, you have 4 years. So if they fall short in year one, they need to know that's okay. They need to know that you're there to help them develop. And I think that's a key word of the philosophy and a key word of the culture is they should feel like they're developing. I'm not a results-based coach. It's about the outcome at the end. It's about the process. And I think if you can improve the player, improve the person, you're going to improve the results as well. So that should come secondary.
Having said that, you only lost 4 times. Do you remember all 4 losses?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, they came
say
in some
the
pretty
coaches
crucial
remember
games.
the losses, not the wins.
No, I think we've tried to approach it with as much consistency as possible. So going back to that humility, we won a lot of games, but we always reviewed. We always look back, what can we do to improve? I think if you have that sense of humility in every game, when you do then finally lose, or if you lose, if the approach, the consistency doesn't change, then that leads to less panic, less concern from the players as well. And it's about trying to keep them on an even level playing field as much as possible. So regardless of the result, whether it was successful or not, we always looked at the performance and tried to identify what we could do to improve the performance. That won't change in terms of how I want things to be here.
Generally speaking, you're going to have attacking style. You're going to, I know you were great defensively. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
Don't know?
I don't know.
Personnel dictates.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the strengths of the players determines what we will do to play. I need to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are individually. As a result, maybe what we need to recruit, and then recognise what's the best system for us to be as efficient and as effective as possible. I think the big thing is you want to play a brand of soccer that the players are excited about, that the players believe in. If they don't believe, then it doesn't matter what I want to do. It has to be something that they're going to buy into as well. But it's also got to be within their capabilities. So again, going back to that humility, you need to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are on an individual level too. There's a common phrase in soccer is you need to know who your piano carriers are and who the piano players are. I hope we have people that will do both. But again, that's something that's going to be an ongoing process. I think that identity needs to evolve as the team does. You go for recruiting cycles, graduating cycles, it changes all the time. So to have one way, I think is narrow-minded, and I think you can fall short very, very quickly as the game passes you by.
Okay, guys, Coach Stratford's going to stick around for a few more minutes if you want to meet with them, chat with them.